Right now, somewhere in the world, a highly intelligent person is making a terrible financial decision. Not because they are careless with money, not because they do not know better, not because they lack the information, because their brain is running a program that was designed hundreds of thousands of years ago, long before bank accounts, credit cards, or investment portfolios even existed. And that ancient program is quietly sabotaging their modern financial life every single day. Today, in the next 25 minutes, I am going to show you exactly what that program looks like, why it affects every single human on Earth, regardless of intelligence or income, and the specific mental shifts that allow you to work with your brain instead of against it, so your money decisions finally start matching your actual goals. Stay with me, because pattern number 3 is the one most people never even notice, and it is costing them the most. Welcome to Money Explained in Minutes, where complicated money becomes simple truth in under 30 minutes. By the end of today, you will understand exactly why your brain makes the financial decisions it does, and you will have the tools to change that permanently. Let us get into it. Here is a statistic that reframes everything. Researchers studying financial decision-making found that people with higher levels of financial knowledge do not necessarily make better financial decisions than people with lower knowledge. In some cases, they make worse ones. Read that again. More knowledge does not automatically produce better decisions. This completely overturns the most common assumption about money problems. Most people believe that if they just understood money better, read more books, watched more videos, took a course, their finances would improve. But knowledge alone is not the problem, and knowledge alone is not the solution. The real driver of financial behavior is not what you know. It is how your brain is wired to feel. Emotions trigger financial decisions far more reliably than logic does. The anxiety of seeing your investments drop, the excitement of a new purchase, the shame of looking at a credit card balance, the fear of missing out on an opportunity. All of these emotional states drive financial behavior far more powerfully than any spreadsheet or budget plan. And here is the part most people find uncomfortable. These emotional responses are not weaknesses. They are not character flaws. They are the output of a brain that evolved to survive in a very different environment, one where patience was dangerous and instant action was rewarded. That is not your fault. You were handed a brain built for a world that no longer exists, and then expected to use it wisely in a world it was never designed for. But today, you will understand exactly how that brain works, and that understanding is the beginning of changing it. The first pattern is called loss aversion, and it is one of the most well-documented findings in all of behavioral economics. Here is what the research shows. For most people, the pain of losing $100 is approximately twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining $100. Read that again. Losing $100 feels roughly twice as bad as gaining $100 feels good, even though both are the exact same amount of money. This creates a deeply irrational but completely predictable set of financial behaviors. Investors who understand compound interest and the importance of long-term investing still panic and sell when markets drop. Not because they forgot what they know, but because the emotional pain of watching their portfolio fall overrides their logical understanding of long-term strategy. People hold on to losing investments far too long, hoping they will recover, because selling at a loss feels like a permanent, painful admission of failure. Even when cutting the loss would be the mathematically correct decision, People avoid starting investments altogether because the fear of losing money feels more vivid and immediate than the pleasure of growing it. And, perhaps most damaging of all, people stay in jobs they dislike, living situations they have outgrown, and financial arrangements that do not serve them, because the fear of losing what they currently have is more powerful than the excitement of gaining something better. Loss aversion does not make you irrational, it makes you human. Every human brain on Earth runs this same pattern, but here is what changes when you understand it. The next time you feel the urge to sell an investment during a market drop, you will recognize that feeling as loss aversion, not as a signal that you should act, not as evidence that your investment is wrong, just as your ancient brain reacting to perceived danger the way it was built to. And that recognition, that tiny moment of awareness between the feeling and the action, is enough to change your decision. Think about the last time fear of losing something stopped you from making a financial move you knew was right. Most people can think of an example immediately. That was loss aversion, named, understood, and now diffused. The second pattern is one that most people recognize in themselves almost immediately. It is called the instant gratification bias, and it is the reason most savings plans, investment goals, and financial resolutions fail within weeks of being made. Here is the core of it. Your brain values rewards that arrive soon much more highly than rewards that arrive later, even when the later reward is objectively and significantly larger. Researchers have tested this consistently. When asked to choose between receiving $50 today or $100 in 3 months, the majority of people choose the $50 now, even though waiting just 3 months would double their money. This is not logical, but it is deeply human. The immediate reward, even a smaller one, feels real. The future reward, and even a much larger one, feels abstract and uncertain. And your brain is wired to pursue what feels real over what feels abstract. This is why people spend today instead of saving for tomorrow, why they choose the immediate comfort of a purchase over the distant comfort of financial security, why budgets feel like deprivation even when the person making the budget knows intellectually that it will make them better off. The future version of you, the one who is financially secure, debt-free, and building real wealth, feels like a stranger to your brain. Someone you may become, not someone you are, and your brain does not naturally sacrifice for strangers. Here is what changes when you understand this. The goal is not to eliminate the preference for immediate rewards. That is impossible. The goal is to make the future reward feel more immediate and real. Automation does this brilliantly. When your investment contribution moves automatically on payday before you see the money, your brain never has to choose between now and later. The future is funded before the present temptation arrives. Tracking does this too. When you watch your net worth number growing every month, that abstract future becomes a concrete present number, something real, something now. And visualization does this as well. When you can clearly picture what financial freedom looks like for you specifically, not as a vague concept, but as a specific life you can describe in detail, the future reward begins to feel more real than the present temptation. Make your future feel real, and instant gratification loses most of its power. The third pattern builds directly on the second, and it is the one most people never consciously notice. It is called present bias. And it is the reason most people say they will start saving next month, and then next month comes, and they say the same thing again. Here is how it works. Present bias is the tendency to give much stronger weight to the present moment and the near future compared to anything further away, not just slightly more weight, dramatically more. When you are standing in the present looking at next month, Next month looks manageable. You imagine your future self as someone who will be more organized, more disciplined, more ready. Your future self seems capable of the sacrifice that your present self cannot quite manage today, and so you defer. I will start the budget next month. I will open the investment account after the holidays. I will start tracking expenses when things settle down. I will pay more than the minimum on my credit card once I get the next pay rise. Each of these statements feels completely reasonable in the moment they are made, and each of them hands the problem to a future version of you that never quite arrives prepared to handle it. Here is the data that shows just how consistent this pattern is. Research on retirement savings consistently shows that when people are asked if they plan to increase their savings contributions, the vast majority say yes. But when the increase is not automatic, when it requires the person to take action at the future point they specified, the majority fail to follow through. Not because they changed their mind, but because when that future moment arrived, it became the present, and in the present, everything feels harder and more immediate than it did when viewed from a distance. This is why automation is not just a convenience, it is a psychological necessity. By automating financial behaviors, you take the present bias completely out of the equation. The decision is made once, at the moment of motivation, and the system executes it regardless of how you feel when the moment actually arrives. If you are waiting for the right moment to start, understand this. The right moment will never arrive the way you imagine it from here. It will arrive as another present moment with its own pressures and priorities and reasons to defer. Start in the present. Automate the future, and present bias becomes irrelevant. The fourth pattern is one that has existed for as long as humans have lived in group, but the modern world, particularly social media, has amplified it to a level that previous generations never experienced. It is called social comparison. And it is quietly one of the most financially destructive forces in modern life. Here is the pattern. Human beings are naturally wired to evaluate their own situation by comparing it to the situations of those around them. Not in absolute terms, in relative terms. You do not just ask, am I doing well? You ask, am I doing better or worse than the people I can see? For most of human history, this comparison was limited to your immediate community, your neighborhood, your colleagues, your extended family, a relatively small group of people whose lives you had genuine visibility into. Today, through social media, you are comparing yourself to a curated highlight reel of thousands of people simultaneously. Every luxury holiday, every new car, every restaurant meal, every achievement and milestone, all filtered for maximum impression and minimum reality. And your brain, which evolved to use social comparison as a useful signal about your standing in a small community, is now running that same comparison program against an impossible standard it was never designed to handle. The financial consequences are severe and well documented. Studies consistently show that people spend more when they are exposed to images of affluent lifestyles. They take on more debt to maintain appearances. They choose visible status purchases, cars, clothing, technology, over invisible wealth-building decisions like investing and saving. There is a phrase that captures this perfectly. Spending money you do not have to buy things you do not need to impress people you do not know. Think about the last financial decision you made that was influenced, even slightly, by how it would appear to others. A car upgrade, a holiday, a purchase you could have delayed. Most people answer this honestly within seconds. Here is the shift that changes everything. Wealthy people, genuinely wealthy people, have largely decoupled their financial decisions from social comparison. They do not make spending choices based on what others will think. They make them based on their own values and their own financial plan. This is not about becoming indifferent to others. It is about recognizing that the comparison you are making against a curated, impossible standard is not a fair or accurate reflection of reality, and it is costing you your financial future. Unfollow what makes you spend. Follow what helps you grow. And remember that the most impressive balance sheet is the one nobody can see. The fifth pattern is the subtlest of all the patterns we cover today, and in many ways it is the most fascinating. It is called mental accounting, and once you see it, you will notice it everywhere. Here is what it is. Mental accounting is the tendency to treat money differently depending on where it came from, or where it is mentally assigned, rather than treating all money as equally valuable. A simple example. Most people treat a tax refund very differently from their regular salary. The salary, earned through regular work, tends to be spent carefully and deliberately. The tax refund, which feels like found money, tends to be spent more freely and on things the person would not normally buy. But the money is identical. $1 from your salary and $1 from your tax refund have exactly the same purchasing power. They are mathematically interchangeable, but psychologically, they feel completely different. Here is another example. People who keep their emergency fund in a savings account while simultaneously carrying a credit card balance at 20% interest are often making a financially irrational decision. The interest they are paying on the card almost certainly exceeds the interest they are earning in savings, but mentally, savings feels like savings. Card debt feels like credit card debt. They are in separate mental accounts, and the brain does not naturally add them together and ask whether the arrangement makes mathematical sense. This same mental accounting pattern affects how people think about bonuses, gifts, gambling winnings, and inheritances. Money that arrives outside the normal earning pattern is almost universally treated as less real and spent more freely than money earned through regular work. Understanding this matters because it means that the category you assign money to changes how you spend it, regardless of the actual amount. The practical application is straightforward. All money is the same money. A tax refund is not bonus money to spend freely. It is your money that was temporarily held by the government. A bonus is not extra money to splurge on. It is income that follows exactly the same financial rules as every other pound or dollar you earn. When unexpected money arrives, treat it with the same intention you would treat your regular income. Apply your 20% investment rate. Build your emergency fund. Pay down high-interest debt. Your financial plan should not change based on where the money came from, only on where it needs to go. Here is the hidden truth underneath all 5 of these patterns. None of them are bugs in your thinking. They were all features, at some point in human history, that helped people survive and make good decisions in the environment they lived in. Loss aversion kept early humans from taking reckless risks that could be fatal. Instant gratification bias ensured people consumed available resources before they spoiled or were taken by others. Present bias kept people focused on immediate survival rather than being paralyzed by distant threats. Social comparison helped people understand their standing in their community, critical information for survival and cooperation. Mental accounting helped people categorize and organize limited resources in a world without banks or spreadsheets. All 5 were brilliant solutions for a world that no longer exists. The financial industry is simply built around products and services that are optimized for a world that does understand these patterns and that profits from the predictable ways they lead people to behave. That is not malicious. It is just business. But now you understand these patterns, and that changes your relationship with every single financial decision you will make from this point forward. The goal is not to eliminate these patterns. They are wired in too deeply for that. The goal is to build financial systems and habits that work with your brain's natural tendencies, not against them. Automate so that loss aversion never gets to sabotage your investments. Pre-commit so that present bias never gets to defer your savings goals. Track so that future rewards feel as real as present temptations. Unfollow and unsubscribe from what makes you compare. And spend. Treat all money identically regardless of where it came from. 5 patterns, all ancient, all human, all manageable, once you see them clearly. Here is your 5-step money mindset action plan. This week, 0 cost. Works at any income level in any country. Step 1. Name your patterns. Write down which of the 5 patterns you recognize most in your own financial behavior. Loss aversion, instant gratification, present bias, social comparison, mental accounting. You cannot manage what you cannot name. Take 5 minutes today and write down your top 2. Step 2. Set up one automatic financial action. Choose one financial behavior that you have been deferring, starting an investment, increasing savings, setting up a debt payment, and automate it today. Remove the decision from future you. Make it happen regardless of how you feel when the moment arrives. Step 3. Audit your social media feeds. Unfollow or mute 3 accounts that make you feel financially inadequate or trigger spending impulses. Follow 3 accounts that teach you something about money or investing. This one step changes the information environment your brain operates in. Step 4. Create a windfall rule. Write this sentence down somewhere you will see it. Any money that arrives outside my normal income will be treated exactly like regular income. 20% to investments, emergency fund topped up, high interest debt reduced. Write it now so you do not have to decide in the moment when unexpected money arrives. Step 5. Track your net worth once a month, not daily. Once a month, write down your assets, write down your debts, calculate the gap, watch it change. This single habit makes your future feel real, and real futures are far more motivating than abstract ones. 5 steps, all free, all starting today. The beginning of a different relationship with money, and with the brain that makes every financial decision you will ever make. Let us bring everything together. Pattern 1. Loss aversion. The pain of losing feels twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining. Recognize this feeling. Do not act on it during market drops. It is your ancient brain, not a signal to sell. Pattern 2. Instant gratification. Your brain values now over later, even when later is objectively better. Automate so the future is funded before the present temptation arrives. Pattern 3. Present bias. You will always believe future you is more ready than present you. Pre-commit, automate, and start now because the right moment never arrives the way you imagine it. Pattern 4. Social comparison. You are comparing your real life to a curated highlight reel and spending money you do not have to impress people you do not know. Unfollow, unsubscribe, build the balance sheet nobody can see. Pattern 5. Mental accounting. All money is the same money. Treat your bonus, your tax refund, your gift exactly like your salary. The same rules, the same intention, every time. 5 patterns, all human, all manageable, all working against your financial future until today. You now understand something most people never learn, not from school, not from their parents, not from anywhere. And that understanding genuinely changes everything. The moment this video ends, do one thing. Name your patterns. Write down the 2 that hit closest to home, because you cannot manage what you cannot name. If this gave you value, subscribe to Money Explained in Minutes. Every week, one important money concept made as simple as possible. No jargon, no lectures, just clarity. And next week we are going even further. We are going to talk about how inflation silently steals from you every single year, what it actually does to your savings, your salary, and your future, and exactly what to do about it. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Drop a comment below. Which of these 5 patterns do you recognize most in yourself? I read every single one. Money explained in minutes. Understand money. Build wealth. See you next week.